Okay, well, thank you for coming. We're not a big group today, but more people may arrive, and I want to be mindful of our time. This is a very impromptu thing. This is not my usual thing. I did not provide, I did not make any kind of slides or anything for us to, study from or what. I just want to have a conversation. I do have a bit of an outline to kind of keep us on track. But if you have never heard of me, my name is Tammy Romani. I am a brand voice strategist and also a professional voiceover talent. The brand voice strategy part just kind of came in about 10 years ago when people started coming to me and saying, I know I need to do videos for my business, but I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do that. And plus, I hate my voice. So I started with kind of voice coaching, just the average business owner. How can you speak with more clarity and more confidence in your videos and your audio, start a podcast, all those things. And then it kind of morphed into, oh, and you also need to figure out what you're going to say. So, like, what do you represent as a whole? So that's kind of my business thing. I'm in the suburbs of Los Angeles, in a little foothill town just east of Los Angeles. And I am a grandma of three. We just had our third little grandbaby a couple months ago. So obviously an empty nester, but I wasn't during COVID. They all came back. So we were a household of seven for a long time, and that's a whole story in itself. But I've been in the voiceover industry for over 40 years. And my thing is just to help give you some confidence, but I've also found in helping people with that I tend to be really good with kind of a pivot and redirection strategy. Like, I seem to have been gifted with being able to see in other people their possibilities. So that's kind of where I want to go with this, because I do want to acknowledge that we've felt, I don't care how you voted, we have felt a mix of emotions over the past several weeks, right? Um, Here, I've drained. I am so drained I'm so tired of the rhetoric. I feel very scattered, very unfocused, very, even a bit of anxiety, like, because there's so many unknowns. We don't know what's going to happen next. As a matter of fact, I made the mistake of tapping on somebody I think it was on Threads last night, who had posted oh guys, oof, the total cynic, right? It's gonna get so much worse than this. This can be so awful. And then I read all the comments under that from all the people who are wired just like that guy. Oh yeah, I'm already preparing this, and I'm gonna be, planting my garden again. My COVID garden is gonna spring back to life in the spring, and I'm planning this and I'm planning that, and I'm moving out of the country for 4 years, and there's a lot of privilege in that, and people can't do that, and then people are like, okay, what? Other people were like shocked to like, are we really there already? And so I feel like we've just been on this huge roller coaster of not knowing what to expect. And because of that, we have redirected our focus away from maybe what is more productive for us personally and onto just watching this show online. Do you ever feel like you're just watching a movie, or you're kind of a fringe character in some kind of a movie that you don't know the plot of, you don't know what your next line is or your next move? That's how I'm feeling anyway. I'm kind of equating it to the anxiety of watching a movie and you don't know how it's going to end. Yeah, you're nodding. Yes, I'm seeing nodding, nodding. Yeah, and so what would be helpful for everyone watching, if you're watching the replay, or if you're here, we're still waiting for more people to get here, um, is to set a few goals for ourselves and let that be kind of at the forefront, so that when we do dive into the distraction and the anxiety, we don't take all that on, because we've got a bigger purpose in front of us. And it doesn't have to be for your business. It can be just your personal life. If you're not, like, my normal client is someone who wants to promote their business online. If that's not you, that's totally fine. We can talk about how you can direct that energy towards making your personal life better. And maybe that is planting a garden for the spring because you don't know if you're going to be able to buy carrots. I don't know. I don't know. But I hope that by the end of our chat and by the time I get through all the points in my little notes that I've made, that you'll have a little bit of clarity and that maybe you'll be inspired and equipped to take some actionable steps. So any comment on just what I've said so far is that I see the nodding. So should I just go ahead with my next thing or um,
I don't know if you want talking or no.
oh, absolutely. If you're comfortable talking, talk all you want. Yeah.
I completely agree with everything you said. Just,
Okay.
yeah, the being exhausted,
Yeah.
anxiety,
Yeah.
just worn out, more tired than I've ever felt before. And then I have been, because of what you said, you can click on a rabbit trail. I've been very careful about not going to things like threads and getting caught in that
Yeah.
because there is so much doom and gloom. It's the end of the world, and it's just not good for me.
I really did. After about 5 minutes of that, I had to check myself like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be a voice of hope for people, right? That's kind of how you're wired. Like I'm Enneagram 9, I'm the peacemaker. I'm gonna see all this, I'm gonna gather the people, which is what I'm doing here. And that's how I'm wired. I'm wired for community. And the last thing I want to do is get into a community where all everyone does is complain and just have this whole doom and gloom outlook. And there are communities for that. And there are plenty of them. And you can find
Mhm.
them. But that's not what I'm called to do. That's not how I'm wired. That will bring down me, my whole family, everybody in the group. Just like I saw in that thread last night, I was like, oh man, I had to take a breath like, I have been really careful the last week. I've been like unfollowing accounts as I see things pop up that make my anxiety or my heart rate rise. And I'm like, oh, I shouldn't watch that person. And that's
Me too.
okay. I have a journalism degree, so I am wired for information. And that's been part of my problem. I'm just going to confess that right here. I am wired for knowing details, and I am wired for the truth, which is why I'm always seeking it and looking for it and fact checking and all of that. What I'm not wired for is being able to know the outcome. And so that's where my anxiety kind of my anxiousness is like, okay, I'm trained to like report on what is. I'm not really trained to deal with what isn't. Like how do I bring hope into my whole messaging or my brand or whatever. So I'm working through this with you. And I can send out my outline that I'm using, but I also have a worksheet that I'm going to send to everybody with the replay that is basically something that I do inside my Smart Social Strategy Club, which is a membership that's going to be restarting again soon. But we start with what's next for me, and it's just some questions. You can print it out and type it. I don't think I made it fillable, which I should, but or you can use it as journal prompts just to kind of help you figure out if there is something that you could or should be doing either in your personal life or for a business actually. So the very first thing that I want us to do is what I've just been doing. Reflect on our current path. Where are you currently? Are you like me? Like it's not just the election. There's other global events. There's Ukraine. There's Gaza. There's school shootings. There's all these things that over the past couple of years that we've just come out of the trauma of a pandemic. Now we've got all this other news that is just pressing on us, right? And it's not that we shouldn't be informed, it's that now we're at a place like I feel helpless. I cannot change the outcome of the war. I can give a little bit of money to a group that's going to feed those people or something like that. And if that's all you can do, that's enough. That's enough. You're not called to get on a plane and go, talk to people or show up there. Or maybe you are. So it's everybody is so different, but I think um the first thing we have to ask ourselves are you where you want to be right now? Are you on a path right now where you want to be? Um, I would say I was, and then I'm not because I'm just going to give you my personal, stuff and Gidget, you can talk it as much as you want. We don't have all the people that I expected, all the
Yeah.
clicks. We had like 40 or more people sign up for this. So you all watching the replay, I hope that I hear from you. You can go ahead and reply to the email and just let me know if this resonates with you as well. But I think recognizing where I am right now, my current path was I had to ponder my current projects, my current goals, um, my current roles in life. Okay, I am where I want to be as a grandma, super supportive, love my babies. Is there anything better than holding a 2-month old and letting it fall asleep on you? And then we've got a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old, so very different, but showing up for baseball games, having the middle one spend the night so we can decorate for Christmas, the little girl. So I am totally where I am in that role. Um, in my role as a a voice actor, I haven't been auditioning. I've just been getting what comes to me from people who know me. And that's okay too. I've been having some voice problems, so I've been dealing with that. In my role as a brand voice strategist, I am absolutely not where I'm supposed to be, and I know that. I have neglected to launch my course. That's ready to go, so that'll be coming in probably end of December. I've neglected to offer my group to more people. I have not talked about how I can help people, but I know my calling is to get people to a place where whatever their calling is, they can pursue it because they have become a confident speaker. So I'm kind of like a ground floor foundational piece of an entrepreneur's journey if they want to move into the online space. And I know that. And I know that that's going to create a ripple of other people helping people if I can help them get the confidence to make those moves. And so I know I'm not where I should be. I know I'm not helping enough people right now. So that reflection. And then again, after you reflect on where you are right now in your various roles, ask yourself, what is satisfying? Like, and then on the flip side of that is what feels like it's missing. So what's satisfying? I think I kind of talked a little bit about it, the grandma stuff. That's always going to be satisfying, right? Um, what's missing? What's missing is I have a course ready to go that nobody knows about. That's going to be helpful to people. I've done the work. Why am I not getting it out there? You can talk about all the imposter syndrome and all the fears of it. What if? We all have those, and I think now is a time to be bold. If nothing else, be bold in what you think you're called to do. So that's missing. And I know this is kind of an overused word, but I'm going to say it anyway. um, where do you feel personally or maybe professionally out of alignment? So that word alignment, it's a very overused word, but it actually is the best one I could come up with because when things are aligned, or you could ask yourself, where do you feel in alignment? And when things feel like they're in alignment, you're able to get in a flow, and your phone and all the distractions on there no longer serve you. And so those distractions are like a non-issue. You're actually on your phone spending more time helping people than you are hurting yourself by taking in all of this stuff. And like I said, that doesn't mean you're not informed. It just means that you don't let the information hijack your life, which so many people have done. Our lives have been hijacked by, and still are, by all the what ifs, the uncertainties, and all of that. Um, that is not going to serve anybody. None of us has any control about what happens in this next presidency. We can do things on a micro level in our own community, but we cannot impact global politics, United States politics, I would even say state politics. But we could attend a city council meeting if there's an issue that's really important to us, or we could make a call to our representative or our senator saying, thank you for voting on that thing. It was really important to me, because all they ever hear is the people who hated what they did. And I'm so guilty of this. Oh, that was a good move. Let's see who voted yes on that. Sometimes I'll look at that. Often I don't even, I'm like, oh, well, didn't go how I wanted. What if I called them and said, thank you? And there's 20 somethings on the phone answering the phones all day, and just be nice to them. They're probably interns not getting paid or getting less than minimum wage. But that's doing something. So there are tiny, tiny micro level things that we can do. Um, and then the next thing that I have, the third thing is really make a point to recognize the distractions. And your distractions may not be all digital. For me, they mostly are.
Mhm.
Um, and because I'm so attached to digital things, and I'm my training is broadcast journalism, so I want to see what everybody's doing, so I'm kind of, even back before we had all of the internet and everything, I was trained in television news and analyzing and all of this kind of stuff. So um that is a distraction for me if I let it. So I have to be really clear, and I'm still figuring that out, what that looks like for me. But what are the other what are some things that are distracting to you? Is it global events? Is it you know the war? I mean, Ukraine has a very uh, there are people online who are broadcasting daily from Ukraine. Here's what my daily life is like, or we had an air raid last night, or things like that. I had been watching some of those people, and I had to step away even from that because my empathic heart couldn't handle it. And it's very different reading reading about something than it is hearing the actual sound and voice. And I don't want to sound like I don't care, because I do, but we each have to know ourselves enough to take care of our um, just our own personality and our brains. All of these things are carving pathways in our brains, and we have to be aware of that. So recognize those distractions. And it might not be the news, it might not be anything. It might be that you're a new empty nester, and you're like, now what? What now what? Like that child or these children took up so much of my time, and now I only have one left, and they miss their sibling, and what do I do with that? Or maybe a death in the family, whether sudden or a long goodbye. That's a necessary thing that's been pulling you apart, right? Divorce. These are all things that can impact our focus and our well-being. And I will say, you've got to give yourself grace through things like that. You've got to give yourself time. So the first thing I want you to realize is that you are completely normal. The distractions, I mean, that it's life. It's like life is filled with distractions. Um, but the fact that you become aware of it is really the first step towards moving beyond the distractions. And yeah, it's funny. I think of my mom, and she's been gone several years. She was 40 when I was born, so older mom, experienced. She lived to be 90, which I'm so grateful for. So when I was a teenager, what would I have been like? She would have been like 57, so I was like 17. I remember, I think I was really upset about a boy or something, and I was just, I couldn't sit, I couldn't do my homework. I was just blah, agitated. And she looked at me and she said, why don't you just like compartmentalize your brain where you just keep that thing that's stressing you out over here, get done what you need to get done, and then come back to it later. And I just looked at her and went, oh, you can do that? Like, what is first time I'd ever heard that. And it's a thing. It really is a thing. And I'm thinking, okay, my mother who'd been through was born during the Spanish flu pandemic, the global pandemic, lived through that, young, married in World War II, very, very been through a lot of heartache and just loss and different things. And I'm like, but yet she showed up every week for her family and it for her job. And it was like, she, wow. I've never forgotten that lesson. It's the only time she ever said it to me. So I suppose you could Google and find some exercises how to do that. I don't know. Most of the time I'm not great, but you're normal. You might want to try, well, first of all, you need time. And not everybody's ready to even move on from the stress of the election. And I understand that. A lot of people still need to sit with it or figure out actions that they need to take, whatever that is. Um, but then once you're feeling like, oh, I'm just stuck now. Once you're feeling like you're stuck, then move into maybe journaling. You can Google, go on ChatGPT, what are some journal prompts if I'm trying to get over the stress of this thing. ChatGPT will give you like 20, just say 20 journal prompts for the next 20 days. And it's super helpful. Or, talk to a trusted friend or family. Yeah, find a supportive community, maybe. Um, and in doing that, figure out what to keep and figure out what's no longer serving you. So for me, of course, keeping all the family things, keeping my activity, keeping my health, goals and things like that. But all of that digital distraction that let me tell you how shocked I was when I started getting the notices about my screen time. And, my phone will tell me, oh, you've been on your screen for 7 hours today. And I'm like, and I didn't make anything. It was all consuming, all consuming. And that's, yeah, I did not like that. I don't like that feeling. Or you set a thing for Instagram, like a 2 hours a day, and you feel like your day's just begun and it'll say, you've almost reached your limit for today. And I'm like, oh, wow. I have just been taking in other people's anxiety. And that's not good for our nervous systems, our health, or anything. So um, I just want to take a break here and just hear from you, Gidget. Like, is this resonating with you? Is this helpful? Oh, hold on, you're muted. You're muted. Let me see.
Sorry, my husband was walking through and I had to
Okay.
not to make any noise, so I muted
Yeah.
myself. Yeah, I resonated with so much with everything you said, like a lot of, distractions, and definitely social media for me has been a huge distraction. And I feel like I'm just now learning how to manage that and putting my phone down and only checking a few things in the morning and checking a few things at night and deciding what accounts I need to stop following because some of them were just like the same with threads, the doom and gloom and stuff like that. So just trying to work that out. I was prior to the pandemic, I really didn't get on social media at all.
Yeah.
And then since the pandemic, just being home and during the pandemic, job elimination
Oh,
and then working contracts where I'm from home, but have a lot of time to myself, I just my social media consumption just grew and grew and grew. And of course, with, leading up to this election just was through the roof.
yeah.
So I definitely had to just kind of turn that down a little bit. But then another thing that I keep my self distracted with because of all the feelings and the emotions that I've had, leading up to the election and then
Mhm.
after the results of the election was I just started to do a lot of escapist things like listening to novels and just which I mean that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that, but then I could, spend 7 hours a day doing that, just listening to another book instead of doing things that are more productive.
Mm,
So,
yeah.
I will go over some of these questions later on about like, am I where I want to be right now? And, what's satisfying? Um, where do I feel in alignment or not? I feel like I do have a lot of things to think about because
Yeah.
I do want to be a part of social media. I do want to be on social media, but I don't know exactly how. And I have realized through the course of the last 4 years, that I feel like I have a natural bent toward activism. And
Okay.
so I need to figure, I've never been that way
Mm,
before.
right.
Other than I've always been the kind of person that paid attention, that listened to all the debates, that listened to the rallies and read the newspapers, but I've never gotten this involved before. And now I'm realizing that this is interesting to me and I enjoy it, but I also have to figure out how to put parameters and boundaries around it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's a beautiful realization. And yeah, I do encourage you to just take some time with this. Use those questions that I've been asking as journal prompts or something and just kind of write down some ideas and then start researching where you might check first. League of Women Voters in your town.
Mhm.
They
Yeah.
have a ton of resources and um,
Yeah, unfortunately, my county doesn't have one.
oh, it doesn't?
So I'll probably just join another counties.
Yeah, yeah. Because even though I know I'm not a member, so I'm not real clear on what they do. But I know someone who is, and she always talks about the resources that they have and that it's nonpartisan. So, but they will say, hey, if you want to get behind this candidate, here's a good way to do that, and this candidate, and here's your local blah blah headquarters, and different things like that. So I think that's amazing. And also, activism is not always just politics. Sometimes it is campaigning for some kind of a program at school to
Mhm.
help. The example that I heard Sharon McMahon say one time was, what if you just did a campaign or worked with someone on a campaign to provide school supplies and backpacks in September, or in August before school starts. And a lot of kids really fret about that because they know there's no money to buy them a new backpack. Things like that. That's activism and that's making
Yeah.
a difference. So it could, I mean, it could run the gamut. And I really trust that as you start exploring things like this, the right things come to you.
Mhm.
It works that way for me. Like the right people come to you. It's just everything just kind of works in your favor. And I really believe that, where if you're supposed to be involved in something, I think you're gonna, it could even be random. You could randomly meet somebody who really speaks into that in your life and then wants to stay in touch or has an idea or something you can do. So I think that's beautiful. That's great. That's a great realization. So then the next part is to move on from the recognizing those distractions is reset your focus with intentional goals.
Mm.
So um, I think that the importance of there's a difference between having intentional goals and reacting to your circumstances. Like they both are actions and they both accomplish something, but intentional goals actually keep you moving forward, whereas just being reactive to circumstances kind of keeps you spinning in place because you're just waiting for the next thing to react to. Right? Does that make sense?
Mm. Yeah.
Where like and that's the difference to me anyway. And I think that's pretty accurate for most people because when you visit that and you think about it and you think about, okay, what is one primary focus or maybe aspiration I have, that you want to kind of revisit, do some research on, maybe even pursue, spend more time than just a little bit of research, something that maybe you're starting to think about or you've thought about, and it might be starting a business. It might be, getting into activism in some form or another. It might be joining forces with somebody else to do something. It might be grabbing a girlfriend and starting a podcast about kitchen table talks, like you're sitting there talking about whatever matters to you, things like that. I actually have talked that way with girlfriends before, and they're like, "This should have been a podcast," like other women need to hear this. I think there's a lot of women like us who have really insightful things to say, and sometimes you just stick a cheapo microphone there, and it could be even your phone, and record it and figure out how to upload it. And there's free podcast sites now. There's ways to do that. So um, also, I think that it's okay to revisit things that you've maybe set aside. So maybe you've set them aside intentionally, or your distractions have kept you from making progress. Or for example, with me, with my Smart Social Strategy Club, it used to be called Empire Builders Society. It was for empty nest moms, and kind of a what's next kind of a thing. Well, in April of 2020, every single person, what happened in March 20th of 2020, everybody moved back into our house. By April, everybody in that group was like, "I'm out." And I had to shut it down because everybody left because of the uncertainty. So a lot of them are now revisiting what they wanted to do. I've now renamed it the Smart Social Strategy Club, um, because they don't feel as much of an empty nester anymore because my kids are in their 30s now. So it feels different than like the 20s. So, but all that to say that different things cause you to redirect your focus elsewhere. Maybe there's something that you need to come back to. So that's another thing to ponder. And and then I want to kind of make a little bit of a turn here where we talk about, I know I used the words true calling in my title. Um, what do you think about when you hear the words true calling? Maybe I shouldn't have put the word true there because, calling, purpose, all those words are also, again, way overused, just like alignment is. And I think that we don't like go, "Oh, I missed my calling because I didn't do that thing." Right? I don't think we have one thing that we're supposed to do in life. And if we miss it, that's it. We're doomed. We screwed up. I think that maybe we have a series of callings based on um, our season that we're in, our season of life. I think we have a series of callings. So I probably shouldn't have called it your true calling. How about I say your true calling for the foreseeable future until you get a redirect away from that? For me, I had a redirect with the pandemic, and now I'm kind of refocusing back to that. But that was a pretty big chunk of time where I was like, "Oh, I was spinning. Do I go back to that? Is that?" And it's like, it turns out, yeah, that is what I'm supposed to do. I am supposed to go back to that. I got many people, in my life, and people that I'd helped before, like, "Why aren't you doing this again?" So I think it's something that aligns with like a combination of your values and your strengths and what you would consider to be your purpose. That's my definition. What do you think about that?
Well, I like the idea of the series of callings
Yes.
because yeah, I've struggled with that for years because I do know people that believe you have one true calling and that's it and that's your
Yeah.
calling. And it does beg the question of like, what if I missed it? But
Hmm.
I do think you change,
Oh,
you
yeah,
know, as you grow and
absolutely.
you learn more and you change. And I think what you desire and what you're interested in and what you want to do changes. So I like that concept of a series of callings and just
Yeah.
being, you know, adapting to that idea as opposed to being pressured into the what's your true calling
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say, some people know it. Some people just know. My
Mhm.
mother was that way. Literally, okay, we're talking just born in 1919. So my parents got married in 1938. They were 19 years old, right? And my mother said to my dad, I always laughed every time she told me this story. Um, I'm called to be a preacher, so if you can't handle that, we probably shouldn't get married. At 19, my mom knew that she was going to be a preacher and that it was going to be hard and that everybody was going to be against her because nobody likes seeing a woman in that kind of leadership, right?
Mhm.
And she was. Her whole life she got pushback. But she did it. She did it until well into her 70s.
That's amazing.
She just knew. And but it changed. But I will say like her focus of like this is what I'm supposed to do is lead people in this way in their spiritual lives. But what that looked like changed a lot with different seasons, right?
Mhm.
Different locations, different types of people that she was leading. It was very different. The role that my dad played changed. By the time I came along, he was like the supportive spouse who had a job outside the home so she could do her thing, you know? And that was
Wow.
that was pretty remarkable to witness. And I think that's why um, I'm so confident in that because I had that example. Um, I don't know that many people though who at 19 and then in their 70s are still doing what they knew they were born to do, right? I think she was really rare. So I don't want us to get caught up in that because I've done many things too, and I hope to do many more different things.
Mhm.
Um, but I will say that the overarching theme of maybe my calling is encouraging people to be their best or giving them some kind of hope. So I think that I'm wired for a certain thing, but it looks different all the time. And that's okay. I think that's great. It makes it interesting. So, but when you're thinking about what you should do next, think about these things like what makes me feel most alive, right? What makes me feel alive? And when you are doing that thing or something similar that you think you could carry this into a bigger thing, um, what makes you excited? Like, oh, when I hang up from a coaching call, I am so jacked up and jazzed that I was able to come up with I like my brain was able to give that person an idea that they were excited to run with. That is like the most amazing feeling. And so if you can translate something like that, like when you're in the like a flow of like, oh, this is working, what does that feel like and what does that look like? And that's where you bring out your personal strengths and your personal passions. Like, um, consider, I mean, I'm all about helping others in any way that we can. What? have I always thought that I could help others with? Um, I like it's so funny. People don't believe I'm an introvert, but I'm totally an introvert, but I like people. I really like people. And I like gathering people. So I lead a group of women on Friday mornings. And I have this little group online that I'm going to be building again. And I have a course that I want to, instead of just launching the course, I want to help people through it for 8 weeks so that in 8 weeks they can be done and move on to the next thing because this is a foundation that they need, right? And so I know that those are my strengths. And so that way then I think, okay, how can I translate that into helping others? What does that look like? It takes a lot of soul searching and it also takes a lot of failing, to be honest. And it takes a lot of just kind of figuring things out. So um, I think aligning then, if we want to translate it into social media and how you show up, which I call your brand voice, because we all, I hate to even say this, but we all are a personal brand, kind of, sort of. I
Mhm.
mean, we all, what we say and what we do represents us. And I hate that we're using the word personal brand and I'm a brand because I'm not a influencer. Everybody thinks you're an influencer, But no, I think even if you work at a bank, you're a personal brand
Mhm.
because your personal brand is how you show up in the world. So the next exercise that I think is helpful for everyone to do is to write down 3 to 5 words that represent how you want to sound, how you want to show up in this next chapter in your life. Let's say I worked for a time at a university, a big one, and I was the VA benefits administrator. And I loved that job. I was the oldest person in the registrar's office, even in my 50s. Um, but I loved it. It was such a great time. Um, and working in an environment like that, an educational environment, you could feel defensive because everybody's more educated than you. The head of the department has a doctorate and da 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 da. Maybe I've got more life experience, you know, um, or you can just show up as yourself and love me or leave me, like we had some people who loved me, some people maybe didn't. I don't know. I think everybody liked me, but I just made a point to just show up and be. I was kind of like, not really the mom, but just kind of the supportive person. I was literally like, um, I mean, I even had that my boss's wife came to me and said, something you said to me last year really helped me make a decision. And I was like, what was it? But just that kind of stuff. Like I was just available to her, which is kind of interesting. Um, so I think that aligning how you show up with this direction that you want your life to go in is is your brand voice, and your voice is super important in how you want to show up in life because when you're choosing your 3 to 5 words, some examples might be, do you want to show up as hopeful, clear, focused, encouraging, peaceful, kind, good? Or do you want to show up to the world as anxious, angry, mean, thoughtless? You see what I mean? And when you put it that way, even when I was writing this outline, I thought, oh, I've been following way too many people who want to show up in the world as angry and anxious. And
Mhm.
yes, everybody's angry and anxious right now. Maybe they're not like that totally, but I hope that they are able to make a pivot and go back to who they truly are, because it's not going to serve anybody to just gather a tribe of anxious and angry people. And honestly, it's not going to help you gather people to if you really want to get something done. Who wants to be a part of that? I don't know. Because you have to think about which of those choices of how you want to show up is something that will move you closer to your goal or your
Yeah.
vision of yourself.
Yeah.
Like think of your vision of yourself. How do I want, how, I mean, I've seen this before. I didn't think of it till just now, but how do you want to be remembered? I I have been I have been to, memorial services where people struggled to have something good to say about the person. And I have also been to one, I went to Sacramento for it, where they had to rent a huge room because this woman was a teacher of like second or third graders, and she had poured so much into those kids. And she was in a very, very underprivileged community. And there were former students of hers from 15 years ago that came, right? They're out of high school now and they had to come because, and I just looked around and went, oh my gosh, this woman's legacy is insane. Hundreds of people were there. And it's not, I mean, obviously you're gone and it doesn't do you any good, but it made me feel like I was a part of that. I knew her, right? So what you're leaving behind is letting your people feel a part of whatever it is that you accomplished in your life. I never saw her teach. I was a friend of her. My one of my best friends is in her family, right? And so she introduced us to the family, and we started having fun and getting together and going up there for parties and stuff. I knew her very casually, but I still felt like her life impacted me because I saw all these people that she impacted. So that really gave me something to think about. And I
Yeah.
think if you stop and think that way, it's like, is what I'm doing right now even going to matter to my closest people? You don't have to have hundreds of people show up at your funeral, but is it going to matter to those few people, you know? So,
Yeah. I've been struggling with this. And that's one reason why I wanted to join today, was because I have been thinking about, as far as being involved in social media, who do I want to be online? How do I want to be perceived? And you actually, some of your posts the last few weeks have helped or like just spurred me along to continue thinking along those lines
mhm.
because I can be very, very spicy and like,
Me too.
I want to like, oh, okay, that's who we nominated for this. That's
Yes.
that's who
Oh,
you're gonna
yeah.
pick.
Yeah.
That's who you're gonna pick to be attorney general. Like, oh,
Mhm.
and then then there's the other part of me that just enjoys like sharing silly, funny stuff.
Yeah.
But like
I
I
think,
said,
are we the same person?
but
Yeah,
it's that
I get
fine
it.
line between like being real because this is what's going on in our world,
Right.
maybe not being snarky, but this is the reality. And is that too negative? Does that turn people away? Do you just need to post funny stuff all day long? But there's
I,
so much going on in the world. I don't want to be pigeonholed into like, oh, that girl that just posts funny memes all day long. Yeah, that
yeah,
because
I get it. I get it. And that is where just kind of experimenting and seeing how people respond, because I'm struggling with it too. And I almost made like a private account just and then I'm like, but then no one will see it. So what's the point of that? Like I need to just see it, laugh at it, or see it, be disgusted. And unless you are called to be a political pundit, like we've all been armchair political pundits lately, whether we're talking about it or not, we are sharing the things that we agree with. Yes, that person made such a good point. You all need to watch this. You need to watch this because it's important. I don't know how many minds we changed. I actually had a family member tell me, I can't watch your stories anymore. because he was voting different than me and he didn't want to have that image of me, right? Of because he doesn't know me as any kind of an activist. And so I had to go, okay, good. That's good. Like set that boundary for yourself. But then I'm like, oh, I should do that for people in my life too that are sharing things that. But then so we don't want to be tone deaf because there is a very let's talk about this. Like, how can you show up for people for once you've decided how you're supposed to show up, how you can help people, okay? What I realized is I was so caught up in sharing things that mattered to me from the election that nobody knew anymore how I could help them, right?
Yeah.
So my personal brand. So then I started going, okay, so do I just abandon posting under my name, Tammy Romani? I have this little account called Voicing Your Brand, which I started because I have a podcast that I'm going to be restarting soon that by that name, which is basically my niche, my thing, right? Well, maybe I should post there all the business stuff. And then I'm like, but then what if I want to pivot someday? I need to have people that are going to kind of go with me. That's kind of the point of a personal brand is people like what you have to share with them and they kind of follow you where you're going. So I went round and round about that and I'm still not quite sure which I'm going to do. Um,
Yeah.
because it's like walking a tightrope. And I don't know that with this administration it's going to get any better because it's always going to be a surprise. Everything is going to be
Mhm.
what? Everything's going to be a surprise and then people are going to be anxious about it and we don't really know what's going to happen and um I haven't listened to all of it yet, but the most recent episode of Pantsuit Politics is, if you don't know about them, it's two women. They've written, let me see if I have her book. Yeah, so here's the book. They've written more than this, but this is the first book. I think you're
Yeah.
wrong, but I'm listening, right?
Yeah.
Um, one Republican, one a Democrat, and they even though they have both kind of merged a little bit closer to being more centrist, both of them, they still disagree, but they have such grace in the way they talk. And even today, talking about um, not being happy with this election, but about what's true right now and what could we don't know what's going to happen, so why are we expending energy on being anxious about that? That's a really hard skill to master. These two ladies
Mhm.
seem to be doing a pretty good job of it. They're both lawyers too, by the way, so
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I follow them.
you follow them, yeah.
Yeah.
So
And I have that book.
oh, Sarah Stewart Holland and Beth Silvers. So yeah, and so I was hearing Sarah, I think it was Sarah saying in this episode, like, um, here's what we know right now, right? And if we could all get to that place and share along those lines, like if you want to be up, dive into the politics and you want to be known for that. The whole thing is what do you not want? What do you want to be known for moving forward? Right? So they've created a whole brand around them talking about politics, no matter if it's an election year or not. Um, what do you want to be known for? And again, does it energize you and let you know that you're really helping people? If all it does is make you mad, I don't know that you would want to be known for that.
Mhm.
If all you do is spark uh, anxiety and rage in people and all that, um, we know there are people, especially on the far fringes of the right, that get paid millions of dollars just for outrage content. I don't think anybody who follows me is that. Like we're not going to end up being the outrage content person. But But are we called to be a little bit of a political activist or a political pundit? I don't know. That's something that you have to weigh in yourself. But then the balance is, if you're not like me, how do you balance out sharing what's real? Like, I did take great pains when I would see something on one of these other accounts that aren't necessarily a news account. I took great pains before I shared it to find the same story covered by a reputable news agency or an independent news person that I trusted. Um, I don't know if that matters to other people, but it did to me for my own integrity. Like, I'm not just sharing rumors here,
Yeah.
right? Um, Again, I don't know. You have to weigh that.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe you partner up with somebody, I don't know. And it is hard because part of social media is sharing your life and your ideas. Part of being a personal brand is attracting people who are like you and repelling people who are not like you. That's totally fine. You don't want everyone to like you. So picking something
Mhm.
is kind of hard. Yeah. I get it. I did not offer you a solution there. I'm
No, no,
sorry.
because I ask myself sometimes when I look at something, I'm like, is this kind? Is this helpful?
Right.
But not everything is kind. It's just facts.
Yeah.
Like this is
Right.
just the
Right.
fact of the matter. I can't make this kind. It might be helpful if you want to open your mind to thinking about it,
Hmm.
but it's just the truth of what's going on.
Right.
But I still question myself on that. Like I haven't shared, well, I
Have
did
you
share
gotten any
stuff.
feedback from people? Like, I love your handle, by the way. I
Thank you.
love your handle. And that's part of what I teach people in my course is like picking a handle. If you, especially if you have a common name, my maiden name is the same as your name right now, by the way. So, if you're picking a handle, I was lucky and got my name and I got it everywhere. I guess my name's there's only a couple other people with my name and my spelling and they're not. Whoa, just took off my earring. And they're not doing much. So, I was able to get my .com and all that. So, I can just say, so I always tell people whatever you choose, um use that same one everywhere.
Yeah.
Website, any other social media that you open. So pick something that you can research other social medias like, hey, and so because if you get really good at your thing, you might get invited to a podcast interview. And you don't want to say, well, on Instagram, I'm this person, and on Facebook, I'm this person, and if you find me on Threads, I'm this person. You don't want to give them five different handles. You want to say, I'm Tammy Romani, or whatever it is.
Yes.
So it's just like, what do you want to be known for? It's a lot of soul searching, but
Mhm.
I've really had to take. Also, keep in mind you can put all the people that you want to see it, that on a close friends list and post it just to them if you want.
Mhm.
And that can be people you've just met on the internet. You can just make your
Mhm.
list, family and friends. If that's a personal need of yours, like I really want to share this. I need to share this.
Yeah.
But maybe I don't want new people coming in and making an assumption about me because of this thing I'm sharing. It's hard. It's
Mhm.
really hard, especially
Yeah.
in this environment that we're in right now, where everything is so divided and extreme on either end. And so there's this divide. And um, like I said, I'm like Enneagram 9 peacekeeper, peacemaker, I don't, whatever the difference is between those two things. But I also have the ability to see both sides of the story. So I'm a
Mhm.
big picture person. So I'm often told that I'm like a devil's advocate. I'm often cast as a devil's advocate because I'll always try and tell people, but have you looked at this side of the story? And then they'll go, you're never on my side. So so that's another thing. Um, but we're all just trying to figure it out, and it's just a lot of trial.
Yeah. Well, I just recently found out that there's a 22-year-old following me, and she just sits around and waits for me to post funny stuff. And I'm like, what?
Oh, that's so cute. Well, there's a
I
place for
just thought
that
that
too.
was, I thought it
I,
was funny.
yeah. Well, she likes your sense of humor, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah. I do love to, see that. I mean, that's what's great about the internet is that it does make you giggle sometimes, and some
Mhm.
people just need that. So,
Yeah, but then I'm afraid, okay, well, not that like, I mean, given my age and stuff, she wouldn't be my core audience.
right.
But I do find that adorable,
Yeah.
but also if I post more activism stuff, political stuff, anything like that, do I turn her away? And hmm,
Well, yeah, okay. So you can't worry about who you're turning away if you are being your true self and being authentic to your calling as you see it right now and as you've decided what it is. If you're being authentic, um I mean my follower count has stayed the same, but I've had unfollows and follows back and forth, but it kind of stays the same. But probably hundreds or at least have just followed or unfollowed, and that's just how it goes, and that's how you start to attract by really deciding who you are and how you want to show up. That's how you attract
yeah.
your people that you can serve. Now how you serve them is a whole other thing that we can talk about another day, but are you going to be an information source for them? Are you going to be a source of fun and laughter? Are you going to be a mentor? There's just all these different ways. And all of that can be done online. Like I have many mentors that are just online that I learn from. So I want to move into those like some concrete steps that you can take moving forward. So I think that the step number one would be, aside from all the journaling that we're about to do for all the prompts that we've talked about, identify like one main goal for the next 3 to 6 months. And that might be, do I establish my voice online? How do I want to show up? Do I really decide on that? Or do I create a course to sell and make some money? Do I open an online store and sell my art? Do I write a book or some kind of a guide for people? Do I reconnect with people I haven't seen in a while? Do I really make a point to find some new friends in my community? I mean, it doesn't have to be just professional. It can be personal. What what do I need to move forward with? So define and identify a main goal and then break it down into manageable steps. So actions you can take, and what's one thing you can do this week, like using your example of trying to find out how you want to show up online. Could you message some of the people that follow you? Hey, I'm really trying to figure out my niche and how I'm helpful. Can you tell me why you follow me?
Mm.
Or don't, message them, put one of those boxes up like I did. I did it not too long ago, and a lot of people were from Sharon McMahon's Governor group. One person I met in line at going to the Kelly Clarkson show in LA like 6 years ago. He still
Wow.
watches everything that I do. Another person said, "Oh, we were in an experiment together years ago," and other people like, "Oh, I don't know, I just came across you." So that's kind of fascinating where you can, and then if you want, you can message them back from their response
Mm.
and say, "Oh, can we talk about this more? Like, what is it about me that makes you want to follow me?" You know, or give them a choice. Here's all the types of things I post. What resonates with you most? And list three things and let them do and it might only be 10 people that respond, but it's still going to give you a clue. It's going to give you clues.
Yeah.
So that's one good way to do it. That would be an action that you could do this week. Well, that would be like one thing. If you're thinking you're supposed to do something else, I mean, I'm a strategist, so it's easier for me like I am. I'm talking to Gidget here, we're talking just about her, but if anybody else wants to reach out to me, we can talk more about that. But um, a third thing after you break it into steps and pick one to start with this week, and then just kind of, okay, now every step leads to the next thing. Like it's kind of like getting your first job out of college or high school. Like every job gives you experience for the next job, right? And so when you look back at your own history, yeah, that's kind of the case. And so every step, kind of the next step will be revealed to you, I think, if you don't have a list right away. But I think just kind of working on that, and then um, oh, my next thing, it says to share your goal with someone for accountability. This is hard. This is real hard. But it's hard for me. It's hard because nobody in my family understands the online space for business at all. So if I told them a goal, they'd go, "Oh, great." That's not accountability. So find someone who might kind of get what you're trying to do. Maybe even it's in a Facebook group for a community like that. Start a Facebook group, form your own community, you know, something like that, and then be accountable, and then just kind of evaluate along the way and make some adjustments as you go.
Mhm.
And I think just from like staying committed to becoming a better you, like just making yourself better, involves being resilient and adjusting your expectations for what this is going to look like, because it very often does not look like your first vision for whatever it is. Because some other opportunity will pop up and you'll go, oh, that's the thing. That's it. That's the thing. Um, so, another thing that I think is super helpful is to think ahead of what some of your personal roadblocks might be. So, you anticipate those and brainstorm ahead of time a workaround. Now, some of the roadblocks are internal. They are, things like imposter syndrome. I don't think I can do this. I don't have the technical knowledge. Um, what if everybody I know tells me I'm stupid for trying to do this? What if I get no encouragement? What if people actually come out and say, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard? Those are huge roadblocks, huge. And then some of them are external where, yeah, I just don't know who to talk to about this. I don't know how to learn this thing that I think I need to do, but I don't know. Where do I, how, how do I do this? What's a scrappy, no money way to create a course online? And there are ways to do it. There are ways to do it. So, things like that, and being resilient, brainstorming, and then the way you kind of anticipate roadblocks is you ask yourself this one question: what could get in the way? So that's what a roadblock does, right? It gets in the way and it makes you redirect. Sometimes it's a necessary redirection, as roadblocks are, keeping us from danger. Sometimes it's, I got to go around it and continue on my way. So learning how to just kind of ask yourself, what might get in my way of my progress, and how would I handle that when it does? And I think you can make up your mind ahead of time that when the doubters, the external voices come at you like, why are you doing that? Um, you can just say like, I've decided ahead of time not to listen to that voice. I made this mistake a long time ago. What I started my podcast in, I want to say 2017 or 2018. I'm a voice actor. I have microphones everywhere. Like literally, this isn't my recording studio. I have a recording studio. A podcast made sense to me. And I mentioned it to this one friend, and she went, no, I don't see that for you. And that little bit of doubt from one of my best friends was enough to derail me for over a year. And now I've got this podcast. I let it go because of the stress of the pandemic. I'm going to start it up again. But every week, even though there's less than probably 30 episodes there, every week someone downloads that podcast
Hmm.
still. And it's been dormant for 5 years,
Wow.
right?
That's great.
So I know I'm supposed to go back to that, but I listened to that voice, and that was a big mistake for me. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm gonna turn off my notifications here. So yeah, so I would just encourage you to make up your mind. If I had made up my mind ahead of time, people are gonna tell me that's a dumb idea. Um, and I need to say, no, it makes sense for me, and I'm gonna do it, right?
Yeah.
So that's what that would be my advice based on, it just don't let it derail you. And that's why it's there. It's, roadblocks are going to derail you. Sometimes they course correct you, and that's good, but it's like be resilient, be scrappy, be light on your feet so that you can do that, right? Um, so yeah, I loved having this conversation, and it's too bad we didn't have more voices, but I think we got a lot done. Um, do you have any idea what your first step might be, or do you need to still do a lot of journaling and thinking about it?
No, I probably need to think about it. I'm in a uh kind of like an odd position. I've got a lot going on right now. I need to find a job, like a real job,
Mhm.
but then also figure out how this stuff fits into my life. I don't know that I'm seeing like some of the things I'm interested in as a job right now, but you never know, could turn into something.
Right.
But so I've got that on my plate right now, but I think just I need to think through like what my voice does look like on social media and what
Okay.
kind of audience I would want to cultivate.
Well, let me do just a little quick coaching call with you then
Okay.
about looking for a job.
All right. Can you
Okay.
let me grab my phone or my computer charger though? Because this is gonna
Okay.
die
Sure.
in like
Sure.
1 second. Hang on.
Sure.
Okay.
What I'm going to do right now is just a brief coaching call since Gidget is the only person here. This is the kind of thing I do inside the Smart Social Strategy Club and the Build a Brand Voice Workshop, which is my course. So um, stick around if you want to. This is just something we're going to try and find some solutions for
Okay.
her. All plugged in?
Yes.
Okay. So um, when I worked at the university, I was involved with interviewing my replacement. Okay. So I want to just tell you, first of all, get your resume in order and have an expert for what they're looking at now, right? Your resume won't be seen by human eyes
Yes.
for a while.
Yeah.
And so you've got to get around the algorithm, and it keeps changing. So I actually had, I got my job. It was a fluke. It was a temp thing to start with. And my friend was a registrar, and she called me and she was like, "Hey, I got this temp position if you want it." And I was like, "Well, last time I applied for a job there, you said you don't work with friends." And she said, "Oh, I'm over it." Like we're all friends now anyway, so it doesn't matter. Okay, that makes sense to me. So anyway, I took this job, and then when it was time for me to leave, I mean, they offered it to me and the whole deal. But anyway, so I I needed to hire my replacement. And my boss said to me at that time, "You are the best we've ever had in this position, but I would
Mm.
not have given you a second look based on your resume." It was awful. Even though I'd spent so much time away from the workforce, raising my kids and so on, I
Mm.
didn't know what I didn't know about what you could still put in there about your accomplishments. So first advice is have someone just go over it. I can
Mhm.
recommend someone for you. I do know someone who is an expert at that who'll give you a template or some ideas. Um, and then the other thing is often these days, especially since COVID, like we back then it was of course no COVID, barely the internet. I mean, I think we had a Facebook group for the veterans, but um, the um, the first line of contact is probably going to be a phone call, maybe a Zoom call. So, your background is important for Zoom. I would create a little bit more, depending on the type of job you want, instead of using like the cute
Yeah.
house background that you have.
Yeah.
Look for something not like a boardroom or something sterile like that, but something that just is maybe like you have a little home office kind of thing.
Hmm.
Let me see if I can switch to mine that I have. Um, let's see what's in here. Okay, look at this one.
Yes. Yeah.
See, something, it's kind of neutral. It probably would, I should have a little bit brighter color on, kind of washing me out. With your hair, this background would look great. This is just one literally that I think I saw on Canva and I changed it and made my name in the frame instead so
Mhm.
that they would see my name. But there's a lot, Canva or is a free thing. You can grab it and just type in Zoom backgrounds, virtual backgrounds for Zoom. And so that is because you don't want something distracting behind your head. Like you
Right.
don't want the light plug or the switch or whatever, the, thermostat right behind your head. And then the other thing is just really work on speaking with confidence.
Hmm.
Like, try not to let your voice waver, do some breathing exercises, warm up your voice. I have a little course called A Confident Voice that kind of walks through all that kind of thing, but it's just a matter of just, don't let it be the first time you talk out loud because your voice is going to sound kind of scratchy, but warm it up, bring it down to a little bit of a warm tone, and just be authentic. Like literally act like you want the job. I cannot tell you how many people their resume was so good, and when we talked to them in person, we looked at each other and went, they sound like they're laying in a bed right now. Or they sound like they don't even want this job. Like they just woke up from a nap and they're so sleepy. So your voice is the biggest tool you have for expressing yourself. And there have been countless studies by business schools at Yale and University of Oxford and University of Glasgow that your voice contains more clues to a person of what you are feeling and what you are thinking than your face does. Because people have been trained to mask their face, but your voice is very hard to mask. So I can tell from your voice if you're interested or not, right? When I
Mhm.
do
Yeah.
voiceover work and I'm just doing something really mundane and sorry, boring as like messages on hold, I have to act like this thing I'm talking about is the most exciting thing that our business has ever offered in our entire life. We're going to reduce your interest rate on your auto loan by 0.50%, stuff like that. Like I got to be interested in this interest rate reduction or whatever it is. And you need to keep energy like you want to make it to the next level, which is an in-person or an on-camera interview, right?
Mhm.
So that's my best tips for interviewing is just get all your ducks in a row and show up as your authentic self, but show up as your confident self. And that goes such a long way for an interviewer because I'm telling you, even if their resume is good, most of the candidates do not know how to interview. They
Yeah.
just don't.
Yeah.
So, any questions? That was a little bonus at the end.
No, I love it. Thank you. That's
Yeah.
great. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, and also if you can, even if it's a place where you can go in and meet the management or anything like, hey, I'm applying, is there anything I should know before I have my interview? Stuff like that. They'll be going, what? Like, who is this? Well, like, what's your name? They're going to want to make a note like that. So yeah, any
Mhm.
little thing that you can do to connect with the people. that you're going to be working for, it goes a
Mhm.
long way
Okay.
towards the whole thing is just bringing you to the top of the heap of whoever they're looking at. Because the job market's, I mean, I know that all the data says that there's a lot of jobs available, but it's still pretty competitive.
Oh no, I definitely feel that. I feel like, I'll do the chat GPT for my resume and stuff like that, and, rewriting it for every job, which I just find like, oh my gosh,
Oh,
seriously.
man.
Because the last time I had to, do a resume was 25 years ago. I
Yeah.
worked at the same place for over 20 years.
Yeah.
So, the last time I wrote a resume was a long time ago. And so I, done several different styles, reworded it, worked with a
Yeah.
couple different people.
Good.
I use Chat GPT, uh, GPT. But still, you send them in, and I say 98% of the time you don't even get a
You don't
response
even hear.
back. And
Yeah.
the other 2% you just get your resumes on file. Thank you. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I hear that too. And I had applied for the at that job. I had applied at that university for 2 years, and I don't think my application or resume ever made it out of whatever they scanned it into. I
yeah,
never heard a word.
yeah,
So that I know that is discouraging. That's why I'm saying anything you can do to add a personal touch. If
yes.
it's a local place, are you looking more online, more remote work, or?
Well, I was really looking for remote, but I am a people person. I like to work with people, so I wouldn't mind going. I just don't want an hour drive back and forth
Oh, sure.
three times a day.
Yeah. I live in commuter land. I understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Freeways are rough. Well, anyway, I just want to thank you for being here. And thank you for
Thank you.
participating so I didn't have to talk to myself for an hour and a half. I really appreciate you being here. But I just want to encourage you to remember the main takeaways, like do some reflection, reset yourself, align with your values and your vision for yourself, and then take manageable steps to get there. And
Yeah.
remember, even when you are interviewing for a job, you are still a brand. So how do you want to show up
Yeah.
at that job? So yeah, follow up and reach out to me if you want. You can DM me, email me at tammy@tammyromani.com. And I'm going to send everybody a worksheet. It doesn't, maybe I'll kind of retool my notes and make a list of the kind of journal prompts that we talked about, the questions to ask yourself. But this one is also something similar, and it, like I said, I made it originally for the empty nesters who were all asking me, I don't know what to do next, but it will still give you some points to think about if you, mainly if you are thinking about doing something that might earn you some money. Like if you're thinking of doing a business online, it kind of helps pare that down. Like what could you do? Side hustle, whatever. Your audience is online and there's no getting around that. Like no one's
Mhm.
doing home parties anymore. They're just not. My girlfriends and I had five of us got together and we formed an S corporation and we made jewelry every week. That was before Instagram. It was basically, I think we had email. I think we had email. And we did home parties and took our stuff to local boutiques and stuff. If we'd had Instagram, we would have killed it. But all that to say, like even if it's your own thing and not like a network marketing company, nobody's doing home parties. We would do open houses and all that kind of stuff, but everybody wanted to come and do all that and try on the jewelry that we made and all that. So
Yeah, even
just
Tupperware you just get at Costco now.
oh my, yeah. Yeah,
So
right. Right. So, I mean, and the pandemic really put an end to that. And I know people tried to do them online, but you kind of want to see and touch all that stuff, or you want to order it and send it back right away if you don't like it, right? So, yeah, it's a whole other thing. But if you have something to offer, something you can teach, something, you know, I know someone who teaches artists how to sell their art online. That's her whole business is, I mean, she is an artist too, and she sells her art, but she teaches other artists how to do it. So there is a place for you no matter what it is. But the place is online and you have to show up for the people there. And some will like you, some won't. I have a whole section in my course about dealing with the trolls and the haters and all that. It's not as, you know, it, yes, they're terrible, but again, you just make up your mind like they're nobodies. They're nothing. They're not going to harm you. So, um, yeah, we have all those things. But anyway, I do want you to reach out to me. I'd love like respond to the emails or anything, and we can just chat back and forth or DM me on my Instagram. And I look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you for being here. I am